Pat Doris. Welcome to The Story. Tonight we're relaunching one of the most popular projects we undertake before elections, fact-checking those political ads. I'll show you where they're stretching the truth a little bit, where they left out important context, and where they got it right. Fact-checking the political ads. That's our big story tonight. I hope you like this segment because I love digging into these ads to chase down all the details. We plan to do one tonight and another one tomorrow night, and then we'll do more next week. Tonight we're going to focus on an attack ad that's aimed at conservative Republican Joe Kent. It's paid for by the DCCC, that's the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee, the group that's working really hard to elect Democrats. Kent is in a rematch with incumbent Democrat Marie Gluesenkamp Perez. She's a moderate to conservative Democrat in what used to be a pretty reliably Republican district. The two are holding a debate tonight as both sides fight for votes in Washington's 3rd Congressional District. That's kind of the dark area there on the map. It covers southwest Washington, and it goes north past Centralia and then over west to the coast. Here's why this race matters on a national scale. Right now, the U.S. House of Representatives is controlled by a really small Republican majority. Take a look. It's 220 Republicans, 212 Democrats, and 3 vacancies. That's because 2 Democrats died and 1 Republican resigned. So it's probably really more like 221 for Republicans and 214 for the Democrats. That is a super small margin for Republicans. If Democrats can beat just 4 Republicans while holding all their own seats, they will control the House. And that is huge when it comes to the balance of power on a national basis. Now, Gluesenkamp Perez is a Democrat who's only been in office for about a year and a half, and her party desperately wants to keep that seat. Before she won, Republicans had that seat, as I mentioned, for 12 years. And the election in 2022 between these same 2 candidates was so close. These are the numbers from the Washington Secretary of State's office for that election. Perez won with 160,000 votes, but Kent, he had 157,600, and so he lost by just 2,600 votes. So that is why you are seeing so many ads in this race and why you're going to keep seeing them right up until Election Day. Even you Oregonians who are not going to be voting on the race, your TVs are going to be showing those as well, and it's because our market stretches into southwest Washington. So, sorry, you get to watch them with everybody else. Okay, that's the background. Now, let's take a look at this attack ad, which is not paid for by the Perez campaign. It is paid for by the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee that I told you about earlier. Ready? Here we go.
I voted Republican in the past, and I'm not voting for Joe Kent.
He actually pals around with white nationalists and neo-Nazis.
There's no place for that kind of extremism here.
Okay, now let's add a little, in fact, a lot of context here. I don't know anything about the 3 people that you hear from in the ad, but that headline, ooh, that is some skillful political manipulation because it allows you to think kind of whatever you want. Does it mean that he's such an attractive candidate to white nationalists that they filled his meetings to hear about his great plans that they love? Or does it mean that people in his district wanted him to clear the air about whether he and white nationalists actually do believe the same things? When I first saw it and heard the woman say he pals around with white nationalists and neo-Nazis, I really thought that maybe they'd caught him at a barbecue having beers and chuckling with those folks. But no, they don't have that. And I think that headline really does not mean what it leads you to believe that it means, okay? I tracked down the paper that the ad cites. It's the Chronicle, that's a newspaper in Centralia, Washington. They had a reporter at a town hall meeting that Kent held in March of 2022. Now, the story reports that 5 men drove 5 hours from Idaho to attend the meeting in Washington, and another drove down from Tacoma. The article states that the 6 were there to defend another man named Nick Fuentes, who many news outlets had called a white nationalist. Kent was distancing himself from Fuentes, and apparently those guys didn't like it. The paper reported that the men peppered Kent with questions about nationalist beliefs. The paper reported that eventually the gathering of locals actually got a bit hostile towards the men and then cheered when Kent said his platform was about fighting for all Americans regardless of skin color or religion. Earlier in that same week, OPB had reported that Kent did distance himself from Fuentes after publicity that the two had a phone call when Kent first launched his campaign, and that Fuentes had said that he'd used his social media platform to support Joe Kent. Kent repeated that on our Straight Talk show with Laurel Porter in 2022.
When I first announced I was going to run for Congress, I had a wide range of consultants that reached out to me and offered their services. I did speak with Nick once. He talked about doing things with social media, and I just assumed that he was another consultant. I had no idea who Fuentes was or any of the controversy around him. So that's the extent of our association. I know one of my opponents, attempted to link us together, and then since then Fuentes has been attacking me. His goon squad even shows up to many of my events to say that I'm not enough of a white nationalist or something like that, and I'm not a white nationalist at all.
So I think when you look at that headline, you should be thinking that it refers to the men who showed up and peppered Kent with questions. But the ad uses the headline and a comment from a woman in the ad to suggest that he pals around with white supremacists and neo-Nazis. That's a pretty big stretch, in my opinion. Okay, let's look at another part of the ad.
Joe Kent hired one of the Proud Boys to work on his campaign.
All right, on this one, yeah, I think they got it right. That is a fact. They sourced the Associated Press from July 27th of 2022. I found this AP story from July 26th, the day before, and hey, I guess we can see where the ad folks got that shot of Kent that they're using. It's right there. This was apparently taken at a rally to support those arrested after the January 6th riot at the Capitol. It's used with an article from an Associated Press reporter who's writing about Kent and other Republicans that experts that they interviewed believed were concerned that they had connections to right-wing extremists. The article cites campaign finance disclosures showing that Kent paid $11,000 to Graham Jorgensen, who was identified as a Proud Boy in a law enforcement report. The Proud Boys, by the way, if you don't know, are an all-male extremist group that led the storming of Congress on January 6, 2021. Kent's campaign told the AP that Jorgensen was a low-level worker who handed out literature, put up signs, and denied he had any current affiliation with outside organizations. So the ad states that Kent hired a consultant who was a member of the Proud Boys. Maybe not a consultant, but according to the AP, the Proud Boy part is accurate. Now, to the last part.
He will ban abortion without exceptions for rape or incest.
Okay, well, that abortion comment is backed up, they say, by our own Straight Talk show from 2022. So let's take a look.
I would move to have a national ban on abortions. I believe life begins at conception. I think we have to have a pro-life culture in our country.
Okay, that's pretty clear. So yes, they got that one right too. Kent says the only exception should be if the mother's life is in danger. And then the final bit of the ad is this.
Very angry, hateful man.
I voted for Republicans for much of my life, but I will never ever vote for Joe Kent.
DCCC is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Now, there's no fact checking to do on that last part. Those are opinions. So there you go. The ad is accurate in many parts, although I think it's a big stretch based on the evidence they provide to say that Joe Kent hangs around with white supremacists and neo-Nazis. Staunch conservative with an endorsement from former President Trump? Oh yeah, absolutely. Against abortion? You bet. By the way, we will be doing more of these ad checks tomorrow night. As I mentioned, we're going to look at an attack ad that Republicans have paid to run against Kent's challenger, Marie Gluesenkamp Perez. In the meantime, we do want to hear from you. What do you think of these political ads? Do you love them? Do you hate them? Do they give you a chuckle? Do they give you indigestion? Are you counting the days until they leave your TV screen, which is what most of you have told me in the past? Share your thoughts with us, will you? You can email us. The address is thestory@kgw.com or call and leave a voicemail. The phone number is 503-226-5090. I look forward to hearing from you. Speaking of checking the facts, vice presidential candidates J.D. Vance and Tim Walz met for the first time last night. You probably watched it. I did for sure. It's probably going to be the first and last debate that we're going to see from them, especially before the election. Our Verify team checked to see which claims they made that were true and which ones were not. Here's Casey Decker.
The two vice presidential candidates squared off on the debate stage with just over a month to go until the November 5th election. We here at Verify, we're tracking the claims made by Republican J.D. Vance and Democrat Tim Walz to fact check which claims were true and which were false. Here are our sources. Early on, the moderators asked about climate change, pointing to the devastating hurricane that just hit the southeast. J.D. Vance focused his answer on the importance of producing energy in the United States.
You'd want to produce as much energy as possible in the United States of America because we're the cleanest economy in the entire world.
That claim is false. The U.S. does not have the cleanest economy in the world. Several agencies have measured this by calculating the amount of carbon emissions each country generates and comparing it to their economic production. By those metrics, the U.S. is cleaner than some other large economies, such as China and Canada, but dirtier than some others, like much of Western Europe. Tim Walz responded by saying Democrats have managed to pass policies addressing climate change, while also overseeing an increase in energy supply.
We are producing more natural gas and more oil at any time than we ever have.
That is true. Data from the U.S. Energy Information Administration shows crude oil production is at an all-time high, increasing every year since 2021 after a brief drop-off due to the pandemic. The data also shows that natural gas production in America has never been higher, rising every year since 2016. Turning to the economy, Vance made this claim about rising prices during the time Kamala Harris has been vice president.
She had the opportunity to enact all of these great policies, and what she's actually done instead is drive the cost of food higher by 25%, drive the cost of housing higher by about 60%.
These claims need context. From January 2021, when Biden and Harris took office, to August 2024, food prices rose roughly 22%, according to the government's Consumer Price Index. It's pretty close to what Vance claimed. But the 60% increase in housing prices appears to be an exaggeration. The CPI rent index went up about 23%, and the median sale price of a house rose 16%. Mortgage rates are 119% higher than when Biden took office, and a federal housing price index shows a 41% increase. Finally, Tim Walz made this claim when discussing the subject of abortion.
Their Project 2025 is going to have a registry of pregnancies.
This claim is false. Project 2025 wouldn't require parents to actively register pregnancies. Instead, it would require states to submit data about abortions, miscarriages, and stillbirths after they happen. Currently, some states voluntarily report some of this data to the CDC. And while Vance has connections to the authors of Project 2025, the campaign has repeatedly distanced itself from it. We have many more fact checks from this debate available at verifythis.com. With your Verified, I'm Casey Decker.
Thanks, Casey. From the national stage to right here at home, 4 Portland City Council hopefuls are under investigation now over alleged attempts to game the small donor elections program, which gives matching funds, your tax dollars, to candidates to help them campaign. Under the program, someone must get at least $5 from 250 different people who live in the city of Portland to qualify for those matching funds. The funds can range between $40,000 and go all the way up to $120,000, depending on the position that you're running for. But a report from the Willamette Week in early September found a few council candidates figured, they'd be able to help each other out to reach the 250 individual donation threshold. Here's how the director of the Small Donor Elections Program explained it.
In August, there was a conversation on a big email listserv about why don't we agree to donate to one another. If you donate to me, I'll donate to you, and then we can get matched. The problem with the idea of let's agree to exchange contributions. If you donate to me, I will donate to you, is there are 2 problems. The first is that the Small Donor Elections Program doesn't match contributions that were given in exchange for an item of value. So an agreed upon reciprocal contribution will be an item of value. So we're not matching those, and we're not counting those toward people getting certified. The second problem is that it may run afoul of state inducement and undue influence law.
That's a little more serious. That undue influence law prohibits coercing someone to contribute to any candidate here in Oregon. In short, it makes quid pro quo campaign contributions illegal. Violating the law is a Class C felony, punishable by up to 5 years in prison and a fine of up to $125,000. Now, the Secretary of State is investigating Chad Likens, Michael Trimble, Sam Sachs, and Mike DiNapoli to see if they did, in fact, violate the law. It's worth noting that as of Monday, only Chad Likens had actually qualified for the matching funds to the tune of $40,000. In the meantime, the program is sorting through all candidates to candidate contributions.
So I've temporarily frozen all of the contributions from candidates while I sort through, was there an agreed upon exchange for this one? It just means that I'm not matching them for now. Until I figure out which ones I need to not match because there was an agreed upon exchange versus the ones that were not involved in any kind of exchange, in which case, once I can differentiate one from the other, I will match the ones that are eligible to be matched.
Now, it's important to note that the candidates are not being investigated for simply donating to each other's campaign, but instead for coordinating with each other while doing it. The director of the Small Donor Program says candidates donating to other candidates is nothing out of the ordinary, and she believes those under investigation did not have any nefarious intent.
Candidates all over the country donate to other candidates for the same reasons you or I might do so. They feel politically aligned with them. They think they would be a good public servant. They know the person and don't want it to be awkward. It's not inherently nefarious for a candidate to donate to another candidate. And I even think that the candidates who had these agreed upon exchanges didn't think they were violating any rules. They thought it was kind of a win-win.
Yeah, well, we'll see how that works out. Now we're waiting to see how the Secretary of State's office moves forward with its investigation into the donations. We'll keep you posted on that. And we'll be right back after this. We're about a month into the new school year now, and many attendees in Seaside have been adjusting to a really big change. Starting this year, the district banned cell phones for all students grades 6 through 12. Evan Watson checked in with the students to see what they think about the transition, part of a growing movement across the country to limit cell phone use in school.
When the final bell rings, students in Seaside know where to go. Some have waited all day to check that text. Because this year, the combined middle and high school in Seaside is phone free.
We
kid ourselves for a long time that having small computers in our hands, in our kids' hands, were going to really help. And what we found out, the distraction was just, it was so much.
The school is using Yonder pouches, locking cases designed to prevent students from pulling out their phone in class. The pouches lock and unlock at stations near the school entrance, only available at the start and the end of the school day.
Yeah, it's been a game changer. I mean, it really has.
So what do students think?
Coming into it this year at school, it was just more of an uncomfortable transition, if anything. It's not completely unbearable.
I communicate with my teachers more, definitely. My grades have gotten better.
People trying to DoorDash. That was the downside. People being disappointed not to DoorDash on their phones.
Some say the days go by quicker. They're more efficient.
It just got me to the point where I could just pick up a book, start reading again, and just doing homework.
I was lacking in math, and I feel like that's the only class I kind of picked up my phone to use. But now it's so much easier to ask. Usually I wouldn't ask questions, I'd ask AI. Now I ask my teacher and he explains it perfectly to me. It's easier to understand. The phone was a big distraction for me personally.
Seaside announced the no phone policy in the spring, giving students a full summer to prepare for their new reality.
I honestly think people don't really mind it at this point. I mean, there's definitely more of an underclassman against it.
Like 9th grader Emery Huntington.
Sometimes I'm having a hard time and I need support from my best friends, and I feel like that's just so hard when I can't do that. And I have to if I want to contact my friends, I have to email them. I'm a pilgrim.
Huntington and Cadence Parsons are against the pouches.
I'm gonna be honest.
We have tried breaking this thing open. It is so difficult.
They're worried about emergencies and frustrated they can't communicate with their parents throughout the day, which makes extracurriculars and after-school plans harder. Plus, there's a little envy.
I just think that we are finally in high school and we would like to take pictures and I don't know, I get to experience high school with our phones like everybody else did.
People that are good like us.
I agree with that.
We are good. We are not naughty. We are not using our phone during class. We are perfect citizens. But we get punished too?
Yeah.
Can you believe that?
At the closing bell, you might wonder why more students aren't unlocking their phone pouches.
Most kids are keeping their phones in their cars anyways.
Principal Jeff Roberts says that's just fine with him. If students leave their phones somewhere else, they're still creating a phone-free school.
We're not searching through backpacks to determine whether or not somebody's put it in their Yonder pouch. It's not a problem until it's a problem. I mean, it's truly how we're treating it.
Does that mean spending $25,000 on 1,000 Yonder pouches was unnecessary? Could Seaside have saved that money and just said, no phones allowed?
Could you have? Sure. I mean, we're really fortunate that we had the funding to do that, because I do think it was a tangible piece that allowed us to really show that we were serious about this. And if there is a violation, it's a real quick fix.
Roberts says his staff is ecstatic about the change so far. He estimates 95% of parents are in support, and students are, as expected, mixed. But he says it's working.
You go up into the cafeteria, it's loud, right? That's how school cafeterias should be. They're loud, and students engaging with each other. I think today was the first day in almost 2 weeks that I was summoned to a classroom to take a phone. In 2 weeks, that's pretty good. Yeah. That's pretty dang great. And so really proud of my kids for being responsible and just doing the thing. And hopefully it pays massive dividends for them.
Rene Montez says it gives him high hopes for his senior year.
I hope that I can really be more focused and on task and really try better than my other 3 years here and make my dad proud.
Good for you. I love that one student's comment. What are we, pilgrims? Evan Watson reporting there. So what do you think about the no phone policies in schools? I think it's spectacular. I love it. Send us your feedback, will you? Email thestory@kgw.com or call and leave a voicemail, 503-226-5090. Keep it right here. We're back right after this. Hey, that's the end of our show. Thanks so much for watching. And remember, the story, our collective story, that never ends. For those of you watching us online, we'll see you next time, however you find us. And for the rest of you watching live, the good stuff's coming your way next. And I'll see you right back here tomorrow night at 6:30, 5:30, 4:30, whenever you want. Just come on back.